our next speakers actually are speakers. It's a pair, a mother and daughter team, who come to us to tell a story about Green Meadow. And Alice Crenshaw, I was told, will not mind my telling her age. She's an energetic 93 years old, and came to Palo Alto in 1954 when the family was coming here due to a job change. And she spent several years as a homemaker, and after that spent 15 years working at Fairchild. And among her other interests, she's a very good storyteller. Her daughter, Dorothy Katie, who's the person's name that I was given, has brought her mother along, which I'm very grateful for. And Dorothy has worked as a candy striper at the old Stanford Hospital, and then worked at the Stanford Hospital with someone that many of you will know, Dr. Norman Shumway, and had a 33-year career in pediatrics at Kaiser, and still is working part-time at Mission College and also at El Camino Renal Nephrology, if I said that right, clinic. So with all these various services, we also look forward to their stories. Welcome.
The first thing I want to say is that we moved here in 1954. We were desperate for a living place. I had 5 children, and nobody wanted to rent to me. But we finally found a place in Fairmeadow. And my husband, who used to roam around in the evening, saw Eichler surveying the land to start Green Meadow. So when they built the 5 houses in a row, model homes, he talked Eichler into selling one of them to us so that we could move in so the kids could go to school, get enrolled in school. Because we had moved down in June, and this was by September, getting on to September. So we were the first ones to move into Green Meadow. And this was quite an experience. We sat out there with 5 houses in a row, all alone. All the land was surveyed for housing, but I had no telephone. We did have electric, but no telephone. And then people started to come in. And when they started to come in, they all had children, 4 bedrooms. Most of the houses had 4 bedrooms. So most of the families had children. And there we were, sitting in the middle of nowhere, all these strangers to each other. We decided to have a babysitting co-op. I had the oldest children. Other people all had small children. But I had the older ones, and they were kept busy babysitting. So we gathered all the mothers together that needed babysitters, and we started a sort of a co-op type thing that done on a debit credit. There was no money exchanged, but you would sit for somebody, and then you would have a credit maybe of 3 hours or 4 hours, and somebody would sit for you, and they'd get a debit, and you'd get a credit for sitting at that time. It worked out very well. It really, as a matter of fact, it worked out so well, we finally transferred it to weekends. And on the weekends, couples could go away, and the father would stay at the other house with the children. I stayed at my house with my children, and this gave the couple a chance to go away for a weekend, and that was very popular. We did everything cooperative. We had a cooperative ladder. We had a cooperative lawn sprinkling thing, not sprinkling, a feeder. And everything we did we owned it, but only one, and we loaned it to everybody. Everybody that was in on this deal that bought it, we all chipped in and bought it. But we did share everything. But the most successful thing was the babysitting co-op. I think my daughter wants to say something. She has some pictures on file.
Okay. Number 2 is the house very close to when we sold it. We bought the house for $17,500, and I sold the house for $900,000, which gave her a wonderful opportunity to join Pilgrim Haven in Los Altos and retire very comfortably. So the house was well used. It had no heating. The floor heating had gone. The sprinkler system, which is in the original plan that Eichler had put in, had deteriorated, and so it was not functioning really well, and the roof leaked. And so that was one of the reasons. So it was an as-is, bought by a realtor who recouped it because it has historical things that you cannot do to an Eichler. You can't change the outside, you can only change the inside. On the next slide. This is the blacked out spot is our corner lot there, and this was the houses as they went in. The next slide, please. This is some of the original advertising that Eichler had with his 4 or 5 demo houses, showing the floor plans and how the landscaping was. Next one. Again, some more of the Eichler advertising of how there was usually not too many lawns. Everything was a courtyard or a patio. So there was easy maintenance for the kids and et cetera to have a good time in. Next slide. Inside was the openness of these houses. Everything, the bedrooms were usually in the back of the house, and from the kitchen to the living room, dining room area was all open space, so it was like a free-for-all. You were always in contact other than sending your kid and locking them in the room and saying, behave yourself. That was joint community 100% of the time. Next one. Again, another picture of the interior. And the next slide. This is the 4th of July parade. Started a tradition way when I was I moved in when I was in 8th grade. I was going to Wilbur at that time. Cubberley had not been built, so my older brother, when we started school, I was in Wilbur, and he went to Palo Alto High School and graduated there. In the interim, Cubberley was being built, and that's where I went to high school. But getting the parade every single year, it went around. If you know the Eichler area, it was Parkside and Creekside streets was a big loop, and you would make that parade sometimes twice, depending on how big the parade was. And my mom and dad used to have a speaker on the corner, and they would play marching music since we didn't have a band. But this is a semi-recent parade. This is my mom, I believe, at the 50th anniversary of their 4th of July parade. They also did some memorabilia advertising there, but she was part of the history that was there since we were the first ones that were there. And the next slide is the group, and if you can spot her in the middle, she's sort of waving with her red, white, and blue and her white hair. We have 5 duplicates of that, and she's got it in several places throughout the home of where she is staying. The last slide, the gentleman who did our previewing happened to slide this one in. This is her 50th anniversary with her wedding dress and the picture of her wedding that was done we had her reception at the Green Meadow Community Center. And that's sort of what I wanted to talk about, the historical part of being part of that community. Being there first, being there to share in the growth and the development of the little kids. Being a teenager there, I got to know everybody. I wish I could remember a few names, but I don't. You know, as a teenager, you just go and babysit and give me my 25 cents an hour. I was very jealous because my brother was 2 years older than I was, and he got 35 cents an hour just because he was bigger than me. I eventually did get up to 50 cents an hour. I don't think I ever got up to $1 an hour. I worked at the Midtown Pharmacy on California Street when I was a teenager, and as they said, I went into nursing school in San Francisco and came back to do my starting of my career at Stanford working with Shumway. My starting wages were $3.27 an hour, and that was with premiums for the PM shift because we didn't have daycare, and so I had my children very early in my marriage, and my husband worked daytime at Hewlett-Packard, and I worked nighttime in the hospital so our kids could be taken care of by their parents because that's just the way it was. But I do remember for all the time that that community feeling that we had, that swimming pool that was down there, all the big parties and all the events for the people that lived in that community, everything was done at the community center there. They had a nursery school where my sisters got to go to the nursery school, and eventually I graduated from Cubberley. I was the first class to go through all 4 years, whatever it was, in high school at that time. And then subsequently, my sisters all graduated from high school, and then they closed the school. That part of it is, as my mom today still has friends that are in the Green Meadow area, and she still goes back for the 4th of July celebration. Thank you so much.